Hey, what's up, my friends? John Hiley here with the Tactical Dent Tech YouTube channel and also the Tactical Dent Tech Facebook group. So here we go today working on a deep little dent. First off, we're going to go ahead and remove this plug. It gives us perfect access to the back side of the damage. Now today I'm doing this mobile. I forgot my door jammer, which you've seen in some of my other videos. So I had to use my hood prop and actually use a rope ratchet to ratchet it down. That's one of them items that I occasionally forget, but it is going to hold the door solid. And I mean, it's going to hold it solid enough for us to be able to push this dent out. Now this is a deep little dent, and you don't really see it that well until you really look or you slow down the video, but there is almost a scratch on the inside, a clear coat scratch on the inside of the damage. And you can kind of see it a little bit if you look into the light, but I'll show you once we get the dent up what we're contending with, because we are going to have to do a little bit of wet sanding and polishing to get it out, but I'll show you once we get the dent up. All right, you can see here, I'm actually, I'll give you guys some shots of what it looks like pushing in here. I am using a PDR finesse shaved tool, and I'm sliding right up kind of in between a brace here. I was hoping I could actually put a soft tip in here. In fact, I had a comment on one of my reels. The gentleman wanted to know why I didn't use a soft tip tool. Well, that's because it was smashed up here above and there's a brace up here. So I couldn't even get a soft tip on it. So I had to use a sharp tip tool, but that's all right. Once y'all get experience, it takes an experienced technician to use a sharp tip. And once you get enough experience with a sharp tip, you'll be just fine with it. Just be very careful starting out. So if you can't hardly see the tip of your tool, you're going to jab this thing up or crack the paint, but once you get some experience, you'll be able to use sharp tip tools in the back at the panel. In fact, a dent that's this deep, it's going to be easier to kind of shrink up or gather that metal in the deepest part of the dent. All right, guys, so this is the first view that I had, John, was not really the view that I was looking at it. So at some point I decided to adjust the camera. This is the view that I'm looking at. And what you have here is a round dent, but it is directional, so it is like a crease. So you can see it runs, now my board is lined up the right way with the dent. And if you got a crease, you want to make sure that your lights it's going parallel with that crease. So just like this is the way that I'm actually looking at it. Now, you're kind of looking at it from a perspective that I'm not, but essentially this is what I'm seeing as I'm pushing the damage out. And what I mean by that is here today I'm using a camera, and it's it's a little further out than what my head is, because if it was right in front of my face, I couldn't see the dent. So we had to set this up in a way that I can push on this, but you could also see it as well. So you guys can see it is coming up. This is real time, by the way, y'all. So this is real time, and I really want you to examine that, because the dent is moving very fast, very fast. And this is the way that you want to do it. So you can see here, got some nice pushes up there at the top. And if you notice, I've just kind of worked my way up and down the dent and up and down the dent. And now we're going to go into a knockdown session. I'm going straight for the Pee-wee, which is a sharper tip, peak tip knockdown. It's made out of peak plastic. Now this is from Anson PDR Tools. And it is part of the Dead Dent Tools series. All right, so you can see I'm just kind of opening it up. There was a little high spot back here. Actually found that while I was trying to wedge a soft tip in there to begin with, and created a little bit of a high spot taking it out. All right, so now we are beginning to start to pick that damage clean, just working up and down the crease here. It gets to the point to where, you start off and it's deep, and you just got to be very careful as you're bringing it up. You don't want to make, too many mistakes. I would dare to say anybody is absolutely pushing every single little speck of every dent absolutely perfect, but you get to the point to where, you're not going to mess it up on the way up, and that's the key. I mean, literally, this car is this guy's baby. I mean, he really loves this. This is one of them Jaguar little sports cars. And so I wanted to make this absolutely as perfect as can be for him. And I told him when it came to the scratch, and you can kind of see the scratch that's in it now if you look up close. I'll show you guys once I get done pushing and knocking down on it. And I tell him, and I tell everybody this, that if it's got a scratch on it, I'll always do my best to buff it. I never guarantee that the scratch is going to come out. I always just let them know that I will do my best to buff it out. And, there's a majority of the time, I can get scratches out. And then there's a percentage of the time where they are just not going to come out. Maybe they're too deep. They're in the clear coat way too deep. And to get a scratch out like this one, you got to wet sand it. All right. Now I'm going back in for a pushing session here. You can see myself just working all the way through this dent. I mean, if you look at it, look what we started with. In this tutorial, we are 6 minutes into it. And this is real time, y'all. So this is a real-time dent removal. So you're seeing that once you get a certain level of experience and you get on a dent like this, this is where you should be at about 6 minutes. And, there's a price to be paid, of course. I tell any students, the one thing I can teach you everything that I know about dent removal. You can go learn everything about dent removal that you possibly can learn on YouTube, researching, practicing, all of these things. But the practicing is like doing your push-ups. And meaning that, I had a guy one time that was a health coach, and he told me, he says, man, you can't pay me to do your push-ups for you. And essentially he was telling me that, I can pay him. He can give me the consulting. He can train me, but he's not going to be able to put in the work. And it's the same thing with paintless dent removal. And I guess what you guys see here is that I do have a heat gun on it, by the way. So it was a little bit cool on the day that I did this repair, and had a heat gun on it, the majority of the time working it up. This is what the PDR finesse tool looks like, that shave tool. This is an adjustable handle back there in the back. You can see I got tons of leverage right here, tons of leverage. But essentially, guys, this is my setup. And hey, if you don't have a fancy door jammer, you can do what I did. You can use a hood prop. I actually bought a brand new hood prop because I had a super old one, and bought it right off of Amazon. Had it shipped here in a day. It was beautiful. Okay, so now this is the little scratch that I was talking about this whole time. You can really see it there, and my fingernail is catching in it. So I honestly, even to this point, I didn't really know if it was going to come out or not because the fingernail was catching the clear coat. But Jaguar's got some pretty decent clear. And so I was able to get in there and just kind of work it down. I know I'm hand sanding it. I've got my own technique, and my technique works really good for me. And so just kind of hand sanding it down. And by the way, I had to do a 3-step polish on this. I normally just do the 1 step in the video because I don't want to take you all through the different, it doesn't make sense to me to take you through the different buffing pads. I do use Koschemi's 3-step system. You start off with, I use Rupes pads. I'm going to try the Koschemi pads. I just bought a bunch of them Rupes pads, and they tend to work good. So that's a cutting pad, and believe it or not, this is a very hard pad, a hard foam pad. And that is the Rupes polisher, incredibly nice polisher. And, it's going to do, an oscillation. It's going to kind of orbit on there as, we go ahead and polish it out. And what I love about this is that, the Rupes, they're designed to not leave holograms on the panel. And so, just that motion that Rupes has, is much better at keeping the clear coat hologram free, which essentially means that your job doesn't look like crap afterwards. So I've been getting seriously into the polishing aspect of this. I actually just recently got a flex tool, and I'm working with that as well. And so far, so good. I like it. So I've got both now. I got the flex because it's got a 1-inch pad. And sometimes you'll get spots where, you can't fit that Rupes with that 3-inch pad. And I wanted a 1-inch pad buffer. And that flex just happens to have both. But look at that. Look at how much that scratch came completely out. I mean, it leveled that clear coat right out. The gentleman who owns this car was extremely happy with this repair. There's a few little dents down there in the quarter panel. I just want to note that I actually went in and fixed them later. But right here is the finished results of the repair. And you can see it looks pretty dang good for what it was and what we were working with there. Pretty dang good. And this is in a very discriminating light. And you can see all the natural reflections. Pretty darn good. I mean, I'll show you guys here from the other angle before we wrap it up. But I just wanted to give you guys walkthroughs on these dent removals. I know this wasn't a giant dent or anything like that, but you know what? This is what you're going to contend with day in and day out. And I appreciate you. And as usual, I'll see you on the next one.